Welcome everyone to another episode of Assad Innovation Lab podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Remy Baume, the CEO of Zadig&Voltaire. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure to have you. So today we were very excited to have you, and we had a lot of questions. It was actually hard to pick between them. So we came up with a collection of them which touch different aspects such as your experience, your professional career, fashion industry, and also leadership. Could you start with telling us about yourself and your professional career a little bit?
I guess I'm maybe a little bit different from many leaders because I've done a lot of different things before entering really into the luxury market. I started in M&A in finance and then in strategic consulting. Then I went to really the consumer world, but starting from the mass market in the hypermarkets world. And then I led a company that was more premium, managing 20 brands of kids wear fashion. And then with Zadig&Voltaire, it's more luxury brand. So my 20s were a lot of different things learning, be it academic or professionally. And then 30 and 40s were 20 years of consumer world from, let's say, bottom up. That would characterize my experience. So as a leader, I've seen many different industries. I can relate to what I've seen in automotive, in finance, in telecom, even for the purpose of luxury. So sometimes the teams tell me, well, we don't do that in this industry. It's impossible. And I know it's been feasible in some other industries. So it's stronger for me to root into some of the beliefs I have to progress because I've seen it existing in other industries.
Exactly. So you had a global perspective of different sectors that you could apply. Amazing, impressive. And I know that you had several leading positions in your career. Actually, what was the thing that inspired you to join Zadig&Voltaire?
Well, two things. First, when you come as a CEO working for a shareholder, a majority shareholder who is a person, of course, the alchemy between both is critically important. It's different from running a listed company where your shareholders are a little bit anonymous by definition and design. So the first thing that attracted me to Zadig was actually the founder. He is a visionary. He's a creative entrepreneur. And to me, that resonated a lot because it would be very different from who I am. So, we have done a duo that was interesting for both and for me for sure. The second thing was that I wasn't sure why in terms of data, facts, and insights, but I felt that Zadig could do much better and could be buoyant. And I wasn't sure about the recipe, but I felt it. And I insist on the distinction between facts and feelings because with experience, you tend to, and the earlier the better, tend to believe a little bit more on your instincts, your intuitions. And that was a choice made very much based on intuitions. Intuition that Zadig would have with a little bit salt and pepper, much more to say to its audience. And namely, it was taking the existing creativity that was and is very strong at Zadig&Voltaire and adding a different leadership skill set to scale the company together with quantitative approach to be a little bit more organized into what we do.
Impressive. And you also mentioned that the founder was very visionary. So when you joined actually the company, what was your vision to execute under your leadership?
I think the vision belongs to the shareholders. And in that case, belongs to the founding shareholder. The role of a CEO is, yes, sure, fuel the vision, challenge the vision, adjust the vision, polish and nourish the vision. Yes, because there's this dialogue between the CEO and its board and the shareholder in that case. But the real work of the CEO is to translate a vision that can be out of ground in a way. It can be just an idea into something that is palatable and actionable. So, the strategy, something that is structured and clear, actionable, and of course, then, action plans so that the whole company can know where to go because a vision is too, I don't want to say fluffy because it's very sharp, can be crisp, but it's also difficult to act upon only a vision on a daily basis. The role of the CEO is really to articulate the vision to something that is actionable everywhere, every day.
I understand. And my next question is regarding the challenges that the fashion industry is facing nowadays. So what do you think are the challenges and how is Zadig&Voltaire addressing them?
I think there are challenges. There are two things happening in the luxury. The first thing is that many brands now pivot from a world of consumption to a world of investment. So when you buy some products of some brands, you don't have the feeling anymore that you consume, that you spend, but rather than you invest, because the products will last, if not decades, maybe centuries. Or if you exit the boutique, you have waited so long, sometimes years, to get the products, that when you exit the boutique, the product itself is valued maybe twice what you just bought, because so many people out there want it. It happens in the watch industry, in the bags industry. So I think many of the luxury brands, when they are strong enough, they understand that, and they are fueling the scarcity of products and this perception true to clients that what they buy is actually an investment. And of course, when you invest, you're ready to spend more because It's an investment. So that's the first big movement that I see in many aspects. And so the challenge is, okay, when you're a brand, which side of the boundary are you? Are you going to be on the investment side, which I believe is smoother, or are you going to be stuck within the consumption side of the boundary?
It should be like the mass market.
And the mass market is exactly. Even the extreme of the consumption, because to some extent, the mass market is a consumption without purpose. And then really things are lost on the way. I think the second event that can, yes, be a challenge, because we don't know exactly what the shape and form of the industry in the next semesters or years, is really AI. Even today, you post on Sora a picture of someone, and then you get a film, and it's pretty realistic. So since luxury is based on desire, hence image, and hence content generation, the AI is going to change it all in quality, in cheaper cost for production, in speed, and more importantly, in possibilities of being creative. If you're in the real world, there are some limitations. There are things you cannot do. Now with AI, you can bring a lot more creativity and do creative things, and it's going to be exciting. So the edge and the core business of luxury being creativity, with AI, it's not going to be like boring data only. It's going to be very creative, and so it's going to be exciting. So that's the real two things that I think will happen.
So you think it expands the creativity?
Yes.
Don't you see it as a threat, maybe, for the designer?
No. Well, the core is creativity. So those who create, those who are designers, the architects, you name them, they are going to be the cornerstones of the world tomorrow. To the companies, is it a threat? Well, testing and trying is always a threat. But status quo is not a threat, is given weakness. If you don't move, you know for sure, 100%, that you're going to be a lagger sometime. You don't know when, but you're going to be, last of the class. So when you try, well, maybe you won't be the best, but at least you're, giving yourself a chance not to be the last. Net, everyone knows that. But yeah, there is one constant thing in business is change. So you need to change. And this is a fantastic opportunity. So yes, there will be failures. We need to test and try. But at the end, something will happen.
Exactly. I truly agree with you. So now, moving on with the questions, I would like to ask you some general question about fashion industry. So how do you see the industry changing in the next years, and what trends do you think will be dominating?
I think the change will be clearly linked to what I was explaining on AI and on willingness to invest, together with the context of consumption still out there, because we were in a couple of years of inflation. It had an impact on 2023 performance, and so the power of additional spend into luxury is eaten by the core necessities of food, of gas, of some other spending. Even for the rich, because yes, luxury is not only addressing the wealthy, many others, but still the wealthy, the interest rates, the taxes, that has an impact. So what I want to say is that on the next 5 to 10 years, the movements in wealth have an impact on luxury. You just take the mix between the Americans, the Europeans, the Chinese, or the Asians, and their ability to spend. It's very related to the underlying economic health. If there is a war, if there is a geopolitical challenge, if there is interest rates challenge as well, that plays. So that would be the third element that brand take into account in the velocity of their growth.
And as a connection to my previous question, we all know that fashion industry is pretty competitive. And I know so many people from my friends or even I myself who would like to actually enter this industry or maybe even have their own fashion companies. What do you think are the methods or maybe a business plan that they could use in order to stand out in this competition?
First of all, I think it's a little bit of a misconception to believe that it's more competitive or much more competitive to enter luxury than some other industries, because also in front of so many people who want to join in luxury is one of the very fast hiring industries. So there is kind of a match between the offer and the demand in jobs. Now you want the best jobs, so that will remain very competitive. Of course, I would advise three things. The first is work on yourself and be able to articulate your edge. What is making you so special? And it's not the way to phrase it to your future employer, but what would they be missing if they don't hire you? You need to be super clear yourself. So work on you. It's not being arrogant in any way. It's just being self-aware. So work on yourself and be able to articulate really beyond the obvious things that you would say during an interview why you're so special. And of course, give it content. If you're passionate about that and you're going to say that in an interview, well, go further into creating content, spending hours, extracurricular activities, or whatever it is, just to have depth into your argument. So the first thing is the edge. The second thing is, in luxury, the most important thing is the customer experience and the excellence of it. And it happens in the boutiques. So if early on you can have an experience in boutiques, in good brands that, by the way, are also giving training, that's going to be great, because later on in your career, you may want to go to headquarters and some departments there. Well, it's going to be really, really valued, your experience in boutiques, because that's the truth. The truth of everything that is imagined in headquarters is a reality in the boutiques. So try early on to have an experience there. And the last thing is, of course, luxury, the core is creation, the core is communication, the core is the product. But to have such an excellent experience, you need to have so many surrounding departments and expertise, from perfect logistics to excellent finance to AI. And so you have actually multiple doors where you can enter. If you love finance, while entering into luxury through finance and then migrating laterally to some other departments is absolutely feasible. We have seen many general managers, market directors who were coming from finance, take my example. So don't limit yourself, be clear on your edge, and try to, one example, that's not the only one for sure, but to work in boutique early on.
Amazing, very interesting points. My next question actually is related kind of to what you were talking about. So as people who may want to lead in this industry in the future, what do you think are the characteristics of a successful leader? And how can a leader manage all of these changes of this industry with staying loyal to the integrity of the company?
I think your question is not only important for luxury, it's what is leadership tomorrow, in a way. Two specificities for luxury. One is managing creation, and the second is managing the fragmentation of the point of sales. Because for the first one, the creatives, they are one of a kind. They are driven by their emotions, and it's good. They are listening to their emotions. They are unsatisfied very often, because this is what leads you to excellence. So when you lead creatives, you also need to know when to stop them and ask them to move on to the next chapter, for instance. So you need, as a leader, to understand the nitty-gritty and the equation of creation, and to be close enough, credible enough, heard enough for them to say, okay, I trust my leader, and he's asking me to stop. He's telling me it's good enough, or it's excellent enough, so that I can move on the next thing. Because if I don't hear that as a creative, I'm going to spin and spin. I'm not going to be satisfied ever. And then I work on the same thing and it doesn't move on. So the first thing is the specificity of managing a studio, communication, or creatives in general. But what I'm saying can be the same in automotive. Those who design the cars, they are creative. And at some point, they need leaders to tell them, look, it's great enough. It's great enough. Let's move on to the next car, for instance. And the second thing is retail. And retail relates to luxury, but also to mass market to some extent. When you want to have a purposeful company that really pass on a message up to the consumer, you need to go through all the organization. And of course, you need to have teams that are very autonomous on the ground, on the field, that understand the strategy extremely well and every day, so that they can pass on some message to the customers while they are very far away from leadership, from headquarters, from just for geographical reasons. There are some countries at Zadig&Voltaire that I would visit once a year or once every 2 years. So my challenge is always to think, okay, those teams there in such a country that is far away and I won't go so often, when I'm there, what should I do? What should I tell them so that I can earmark them and really make it worthwhile so that they can transmit the message to the clients? Or, since I know I'm not there, what should I do so that even they, while being far, understand what I and the team is willing to do? So one hint is I think retail somehow is also a part of a play. What I've found very effective is to tell some teams in some boutiques in some instances, well, you should do that, but if in a very dramatic way, not nasty, but very dramatic, so that they're going to call their friends in some other boutiques and say, hey, you know what happened? During the visit of the CEO, this happened. And either you want that to happen in your store or you really don't want that to happen in your store. And there is the word to mouth spread that is actually very powerful. So there are techniques as leader where you go through your hierarchy. That can be one thing. Or you go very horizontally, thinking how you can spread a word in a different way and relating to the teams to pass on the message.
Exactly. And I think this task of delivering the strategy or the vision to, as you said, different countries can be very challenging. How did you do that? How do you do it in Zadig?
At Zadig, we are very, very clear on our purpose, on where we belong to, what we want the teams to feel and the clients to live as an experience. We train all the teams, the headquarter teams, the boutiques team around all that content. What does it mean to be Zadig, and what does it mean for our client to live the experience of Zadig? And we train again. The second thing is that, of course, we have great leaders in many, many different areas who can really add their touch to the message and really make sure that the message is passed on and really ingrained and understood. And the last thing we did is, it was last year, we organized for the first time ever in the brand at Zadig&Voltaire a worldwide convention. So we gathered everyone from the headquarters, from Paris, Shanghai, New York, and all the boutique managers of the world. We were all together more than 600. And it was the first time in 25 years that we gathered everyone in the world. That was a good moment to actually, again, repeat the message and pass on the message, but more importantly, to live together Zadig's story. And you had teams who had talked by visual or calling each other for years and even for decades. And that was the first time they met physically. And so it was very touching and for them very moving. And when you add the message to those moments, it really earmarks them. So that was a very powerful thing to do. And many other brands do that because again, emotions is very physical. You need to meet, you need to talk, you need to laugh together. And so regularly, a lot of companies, not even luxury brands only, gather and have good moments of that sort together.
Exactly. I think there were a lot of points that you mentioned that were truly important and we could apply it in our future professional career. My next questions are mostly tailored for young people who would like to work in this industry. What sources or opportunities would you recommend to a young person who would like to enter this industry, or what sources did you use to get to where you are now?
The first thing, yes, to be knowledgeable is to read. I mean, you have very easy access to general knowledge, can be newspapers for sure, or specific industry-specific knowledge, articles WWD and some other newspapers who are more specific into this industry so that you know what's happening. It's true that especially if you want to build your edge, it's better to present yourself knowing the industry and showing and proving your interest to the industry, because again, as I was saying, it's an industry based on history. So if you don't know the history, you're a little bit shallow. You know what you see, but what you see is the end of maybe centuries of history and set of actions. So you understand more if you have studied this history. And then it's talk to professionals. It's always, first of all, you know more. You get a better understanding between theory and practicality every day. But also it creates opportunities. You talk to them and you say, but by the way, it makes me think about that since you say this. So maybe it leads us there, and maybe there is a business and job opportunity. So meet.
Actually, my next question is kind of related to what you were saying. So some people say that fashion industry is really about connection and network. Is it true? And if you think it is true, how can we expand this network?
It is true, but I think it is also too easy to say that. So it is true because in the world, it's not specific to luxury. In the world, mankind, where we are social animals, connections are important. So if you know someone who knows someone who knows someone, it helps. But to me, when I hear that, I try to say it's a lazy argument because it's true in any situation. Now, if you're edgy, you're going to be needing less of a connection because you're going to stand out. So how edgy are you? How have you worked your edginess? And how have you worked the way to express your edginess? Okay, that's real work. And that's going to be really interesting, more than knowing, which is less meritocratic. Yes, it's true in a way, but you're better off working your insights and your edge. And really, this advice is true in any situation, any industry. It's
exactly
true in life.
So you think the best would be to stand out from the crowd?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, once you have this connection, once at last you have this interview, they're gonna wait and expect that you have this edginess. So if you arrive, thank you, I have this connection. So now what? It's gonna be short. So yes, of course, work your edginess, and you have a lot. You have tons.
So my next questions are a bit more personal. So I know as the CEO of Zadig&Voltaire, you had a lot of responsibilities, and it's important to know how were you able to disconnect from all of that responsibilities and make a balance between life and work? So
it's a critical question for everyone, not only for leaders, but it's true that my experience, maybe it's not always true, I don't want to generalize, but the more you are up in the responsibilities, the more lonely you are, and also the more energy you give by design. So you need to find a way to find your energy back, because you cannot, it's really mechanic and fluids. You cannot just only give. You need to find the ways to be at ease with yourself and with your energy. In my case, I do sport. Many executives do sport as well, because it's time for you. It's good for the body and the mind. And really thinking about that proactively is actually essential.
Amazing. And my next question is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say be confident. I don't want to say don't be afraid, because I was not afraid, but just be confident. It's going to work. Do the work. It's going to pay off. I was a little bit lacking of confidence. And then I would say, like everyone, some of the successes, if you think about that and reflect on it, gives you additional confidence over time and over ages. I could have accelerated this process of confidence building, let's say. So I would say just be okay. Life is going to be okay. You work, so it's going to pay off.
Exactly. Well, that was the precious advice. Well, that was the questions that we had for this interview. I truly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much. And also thank you so much to our audience for listening. I hope you also enjoyed it. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.